Okay. So the next point is the menstrual cycle and fertilization. Okay, so now what is this menstrual cycle? What are the events? Okay, and how is the fertilization related to the menstrual cycle? So first of all, let's understand what is menstrual cycle. It is nothing but what? The reproductive cycle in the primates. Okay, so like when a girl attains the puberty, at that time, whatever this menstrual cycle phase, also called as the menarche phase, that will begin. Okay, so for now, primates means what? It will include the humans, monkeys, apes. Okay, all these comes under the primates category. So this is a quite complex process. Okay, hence now menarche means what? Okay, first of all, menarche means, now see, the first menstruation which occurs at the puberty. Okay, that is called as what? Menarche. Okay, so the first menstruation at puberty is called as what? The menarche. So usually 28 to 29 days is the cycle of events starting from the one menstruation to the another. So that entire thing is called as what? The menstrual cycle. And one more term which is related to this is the ovulation. So ovulation means, already we know, it's nothing but the release of an egg during the middle of each of the menstrual cycle if there is availability of sperm to fertilize the egg, right? So now if you see the events of the menstrual cycle one by one, so usually that whatever the menstrual flow is there, it starts, like it occurs between 3 to 5 days, or for some it is even 7 days. Okay, so now what is the cause of this flow? So as we know, in the uterus there are three layers. Okay, so out of which the inner layer, which is called as the endometrium, which is present in the uterus, it breaks down. So endometrium is basically what? It is the lining of the uterus, lining of uterus, right? So what happens is, here it contains even blood vessels and all those stuff. So this line, that is the endometrium, it just breaks down, and the menstruation occurs if the released egg is not being fertilized. Okay, so if there is no menstruation, it means the pregnancy has been occurred, right? So there are different phases which is present for the menstrual cycle. So the first phase, which is over there, is called as the follicular phase. Now we already studied in the ovulation about the follicle formation and the release of the egg. So in the follicular phase, now what happens is, after the menstrual phase comes this follicular phase, right? So over here, there will be small primary follicles which will be growing into the mature follicles, which is also known as what? Graafian follicles. Now, Graafian follicles are the one which is going to release the egg, right? So simultaneously, whatever the endometrium of the uterus is there, that will also degenerate, means it will again be formed. Now, this all happens when? In the follicular phase. So during this, some of the hormones, that is the pituitary hormones, okay, they will control the changes, whatever is happening in the uterus at that time. So what happens is, during the follicular phase, there will be secretion of the LH and FSH. Already I have told you what is LH and the FSH. So this, whatever the concentration of these two hormones, which are the gonadotropin hormones, gonadotropin, okay, here it's there, gonadotropin hormone. So this is going to increase. Okay, and further what happens is, the follicles are going to get developed with the secretion of the hormones called as the estrogen, right? So whatever the follicular phase is there, it is going to involve mostly the three hormones, that is the two gonadotropin hormones called as the LH and FSH, and the other one is the estrogen, which helps in the development of the follicles. Now, what happens is, next is what? The ovulation, or the release of the ovum. So, what happens when these two hormones, that is the LH and the FSH, when they are at the peak level? Okay, that is when you are in the middle of the cycle, from starting from the day one of the menstrual cycle. When you are in the middle of the cycle, that is near to the day of 14th, what will happen? This Graafian follicles, it will release the egg. Means it will get ruptured and it is going to release the egg. Now that particular phase is only called as what? Ovulatory phase. Okay, so whatever the egg is being released, it will be having different layers. Mostly the egg is comprised of 3 layers. Okay, so there will be a thin layer, a middle layer, and a thick layer. So the thin layer which is there, it is called as the white line membrane. White line membrane. Then the middle layer, it will be thick, which is called as the zona pellucida. And the outer one, that also will be a thick layer, which is called or which is made up of the follicular cells, also called as corona radiata. So these are the 3 layers of an egg, right? So now once the egg has been released with this entire proper covering, next comes the third phase, which is called as the luteal phase. Okay, so in the luteal phase, what happens is there will be a formation of an important thing called as the corpus luteum. Okay, in the luteal phase, what happens? There is a formation of the corpus luteum. So this phase is also known as the secretory phase. Secretory phase. Now, what happens is after the ovulation, there is a luteal phase, right? So during this phase, now we already know that graphene follicle is present in the follicular phase. So when it comes into this third stage, which is the secretory or the luteal phase, the graphene follicle is going to change into this corpus luteum. Okay, so this corpus luteum is going to secrete ample of progesterone, which will be very essential for maintaining the layer of the endometrium. Okay, so endometrium layer should be thick, and it is very important if the egg, the fertilized egg, has to get implanted in the uterus, right? So for entire pregnancy process, the endometrium layer should be intact. So for this only, large amount of progesterones have been produced. And this progesterone is being produced by whom? This thing, that is the corpus luteum, right? So now if the fertilization occurs, then only all these phases will also occur. Otherwise, again, what will happen? No pregnancy means it will go to the next menstrual cycle. Okay, so if the fertilization does not take place, what will happen? Whatever corpus luteum is being formed, it will degenerate. So because it is degenerating, the endometrium will again start falling off, and then you will start a new cycle. Okay, so this is the 3 phases of the menstruation. Then you have one more thing called as the menopause. Now, menopause is nothing but the stoppage. Like generally around 50 years of the age, this menstrual cycle stops. Okay, so it's like your reproductive phase has been over. And you can say this like, the reproductive phase is what? It is a phase between the menarche and the menopause. Okay, so you have the menarche phase, then you have the reproductive phase, and then you have the menopause. Okay, so now generally what happens in like how does this fertilization and implantation happens? Okay, now this here it's called as what? The insemination process. Insemination. So insemination means what? Now, whenever there is a coitus or the copulation, when it takes place, the semen is being released, okay, into the female body. So as we know that the sperms are motile in nature so that it can reach and fertilize the egg. Okay, so it will go near the fallopian tube where already the egg has been present, and which is the area where the fertilization takes place. It is the ampulla region. Okay, so in the ampullary isthmic junction only, whatever the fertilization means the meeting of the sperm with egg is there, that is going to take place, right? So fertilization means what? It is the process of fusion of the sperm with the egg, and that is only known as the fertilization, right? So we already know that a sperm structure contains a cap-like thing called as the acrosome, right? So now what happens over here is whenever the sperm is coming in contact with the egg. So egg is made up of 3 layers, right? So In order to fertilize the egg, or if it has to penetrate inside the egg, it has to degenerate these 3 layers. So for that purpose only, whatever the middle layer, which is the zona pellucida layer, it will start making the changes. Okay, so in the membrane, and it will try first of all to block the sperms. But then what happens is some of the enzymes which are present in the acrosomes, okay, some of the secretions are made by the acrosome that it is going to degrade that particular zona pellucida and it will enter inside, right? So if you see over here, enzymatic secretions of the chromosome help the sperm to enter the cytoplasm of the ovum. Now, once the entry has been done, next what will happen is it will cause the completion of the meiotic division. Now, as you know, the egg will be in the secondary oocyte form, right? So it will complete the meiotic division, right? And then it will result into the haploid egg. Now, this haploid sperm and haploid egg, which is there, it is going to form what? A diploid zygote. So, n plus n is equal to 2n. So, you have n. One n is of the nucleus sperm, another one is of the egg. So, when this two fuses, we get a diploid zygote. So whenever you get a diploid zygote, which is the formation, or you can say it is the starting of the pregnancy, at that time what happens is mitosis will start in the zygote. So mitosis is for what? Usually cell division. Cell will increase in number. So mitosis is going to start, okay, in the oviduct, whatever is there, and it is going to form a structure called as the blastomere. So like this one zygote will be there, inside the small cells will be present. Okay, like this. So these structures are only called as what? Blastomere. Then it will get converted from the blastomere into the second stage, which is the morula stage. So now what is this morula? Morula stage means whatever the egg is there, or you can, not the egg, but the zygote which is there, it is going to have 8 to 16 cells in them. Okay, so from the zygote, it is going to get converted into blastomeres, that is 2, 4, 8, 16 is the dividing ratios, and then it gets converted into the next structure, which is morula, which is 8 to 16 cell embryo. Then again it starts dividing and forms the blastocyst. So whenever it's in the morula stage, now this morula stage, whatever product is there, it will go inside to the uterus, and it goes and gets embedded into the endometrium wall, and that process of embedding of the the morula into the uterus or the endometrium wall is called as what? Implantation. And when this happens, we get a positive result for the pregnancy. So now inside this uterus only, this particular morula which is there, it is going to divide and form a whole human being. Okay, so now once when it reaches this particular uterus and fixes itself in the endometrium wall, next what is going to happen? So next we are having the 3 stages, that is pregnancy, parturition and the lactation. Okay, so here now the zygote, whatever is there, it should be developed, right? So for after the implantation, in the pregnancy, what will happen is there is something called as the trophoblast. Okay, trophoblast means what? It is a stage, or you can say it is the outer layer. And inside this trophoblast only, inner layer will be present. So inner layer is nothing but the group of cells. Okay, so initially whatever this egg which has been fused, okay, and which is a zygote, it needs to divide so that many cells will be formed and it can produce a particular human being. So to get that thing, okay, after the implantation, there is something formed which is called as what? The trophoblast, right? So the trophoblast contains some of the projections which will be like the, what do you say, small hair-like structures will be present like this. Okay, and it will be surrounded by the uterine tissues as well as the mother's blood. So now what happens is, from there comes one more important part which joins the baby with the mother, that is the placenta. Okay, so this particular placenta is the organ which is going to supply the necessary nutrients or whatever the oxygen is there via the maternal blood, that is mother's blood, to the baby, as well as it will remove the waste which are not required. Okay, so whatever the placenta is there, it is connected to what? The embryo by the umbilical cord. Okay, so usually it also produces certain hormones which will be required after the pregnancy processes, such as what? Or during the delivery process, like lactogen, estrogen, progesterone, and relaxin. I told you estrogen and progesterone are very important for the maintenance of the pregnancy, whereas the relaxin will be used in the later stages of the pregnancy. So these hormones are going to support the entire fetal growth, okay, and maintain the healthy pregnancy. And immediately what happens is, once that 9 months are been over, okay, next what will happen is the parturition and the lactation. Now see, now whenever a human baby is being formed, in every month there will be certain changes. Okay, like in the first four initial months, there will be a small, very small development of the eyes, fingers, and all those stuff. Then later on, only whatever the size of the baby is there, that will increase. Like by the seventh month, only the baby is fully almost developed, and later on, it just increases in size, right? So, actually, after all these things, that is after the 9 months, okay, fully formed fetus you're going to get over here. Now we'll go to the last part, that is the parturition and the lactation. So it's nothing but the gestational period. At this end, what will happen? Parturition is nothing but the delivery process. So here certain signals will be formed inside your body, so that there will be release of the hormone which is called as the oxytocin. So oxytocin hormone is very important for the what? For the uterine contractions to occur, so that the baby will come out along with the placenta. And then once the parturition has been done, next process will be the lactation period. Okay, now over here, everywhere, the hormones which are there, they will play a very important role. So for the parturition process, oxytocin plays a very important role, which will help in what? Uterine contractions. Okay, so more the oxytocin, more higher the contractions will be there. And then the last one is the lactation process. Okay, so this is all about the fertilization and how the stage ends.